This video delves into a real and captivating criminal case, with all information sourced from public court records, official police reports, and verified news sources, ensuring the accuracy and reliability of the narrative. On May 9, 1980, a bank robbery in Norco, California, escalated into one of the most violent and chaotic gun battles in American law enforcement history. 5 armed men attempted to hold up the Security Pacific National Bank on 4th Street in this quiet Riverside County town, roughly 50 miles east of Los Angeles. What they expected to be a quick grab for cash turned into a running battle across miles of road, leaving one sheriff's deputy dead, one of the robbers killed, and more than 30 people wounded, including 8 law enforcement officers. The sheer volume of firepower unleashed that afternoon fundamentally altered the way American police departments equipped and trained their patrol officers for decades to come. The 5 men behind the robbery were George Wayne Smith, the ringleader, along with brothers Russell Harvin and Christopher Harvin, Belisario Delgado, and Billy Deltz. In the months leading up to the heist, the group had been living at a remote compound in the Lytle Creek area of the San Bernardino Mountains, stockpiling weapons, ammunition, and survival gear. Smith had organized the crew around a shared obsession with survivalism and a growing desperation for money to fund their isolated lifestyle. They selected the Security Pacific branch in Norco precisely because of the town's rural, low-profile character, betting that local law enforcement would be slow to respond and lightly armed. On the afternoon of May 9, a Friday, the 5 men pulled up to the bank wearing military-style fatigues and body armor. Their arsenal was staggering for a bank robbery: semi-automatic rifles including an AR-15 and a Heckler & Koch 93 Hong Kong dollars, 12-gauge shotguns, handguns, and dozens of homemade pipe bombs packed into ammunition cans. They carried thousands of rounds of ammunition divided among duffel bags and loaded magazines. When they stormed through the front door, they ordered customers and employees to the floor and began emptying the vault and teller drawers, working with rehearsed speed. Their timetable collapsed within minutes. Riverside County Sheriff's Deputy Glenn Bolaski, a young officer on routine patrol, received a silent alarm notification and drove to the bank. As Bolaski pulled his cruiser into the parking lot, the robbers spotted him through the front windows and opened fire before he could even step out of the car. Rounds from the 93 Hong Kong dollars and the AR-15 tore through the hood, windshield, and doors of the patrol car, striking Bolaski in the arm and shoulder. Despite his wounds, Bolaski managed to return fire with his service revolver and radio for backup. His cruiser absorbed well over 100 bullet impacts in those opening seconds, a fact that would later be cited in department reports as evidence of the overwhelming firepower disadvantage faced by patrol officers. With sirens approaching from every direction, the 5 robbers abandoned the bank and piled into a green Chevrolet van they had parked outside. Rather than surrendering or attempting stealth, they chose to shoot their way out. As the van roared south down Hamner Avenue, the men threw lit pipe bombs from the rear doors and side windows at the pursuing sheriff's cruisers. The homemade explosives detonated on the roadway, sending shrapnel into patrol cars and forcing officers to swerve. Several bombs failed to detonate and were recovered intact by investigators afterward. Witnesses along the route described what sounded like a war zone, with automatic rate gunfire echoing off storefronts and clouds of smoke drifting across the road. The pursuit stretched from the residential streets of Norco onto Interstate 15, where afternoon traffic complicated the chase. Sheriff's units, California Highway Patrol cars, and San Bernardino County deputies converged on the fleeing van, creating a rolling convoy of flashing lights and gunfire that covered nearly 20 miles. During this stretch of the chase, Deputy James Bernard Evans of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department was struck and killed by rifle fire as he attempted to set up a roadblock.
Evans, a veteran deputy, became the sole law enforcement fatality of the incident, and his death galvanized the dozens of officers now involved in the pursuit.
The van eventually turned off the interstate and headed north up Lytle Creek Road, climbing into the narrow canyon that led toward the robbers' own compound in the San Bernardino Mountains. The winding 2-lane road, flanked by steep hillsides and boulders, gave the suspects natural cover but also funneled them into a dead end.
As the van's tires were shredded by spike strips and gunfire, the vehicle ground to a halt on the gravel shoulder.
The robbers spilled out and scattered into the rocky terrain, still firing at the officers who were closing in on foot. Russell Harvin, armed with the 93 Hong Kong dollars, took up a position behind a boulder and continued to exchange shots with deputies. He was struck and killed during the firefight that followed. George Wayne Smith was wounded and captured at the scene. Christopher Harvin, Belisario Delgado, and Billy Deltz fled deeper into the brush and rocks but were tracked down and arrested over the following hours as additional units, including a sheriff's helicopter, swept the canyon. By nightfall on May 9, all 5 suspects were either dead or in custody, and the Lytle Creek compound was secured and searched by investigators.
The search of the compound revealed a cache of additional weapons, ammunition, bomb-making components, and survivalist literature.
Detectives also recovered maps and handwritten notes detailing the group's surveillance of the Norco Bank, including shift schedules for employees and response times they had estimated for local law enforcement. The evidence made clear that Smith had planned the robbery with military-style precision, treating it as an operation rather than a simple crime. Several of the pipe bombs recovered along the pursuit route were found to contain nails and ball bearings, designed to maximize casualties. At trial, George Wayne Smith, Christopher Harvin, and Belisario Delgado were convicted on charges including murder, attempted murder, robbery, and assault with deadly weapons.
Smith, identified as the mastermind, received the death penalty. Christopher Harvin was also sentenced to death.
Delgado and Deltz received lengthy prison terms. The courtroom proceedings drew intense local media coverage, with surviving deputies and bank employees testifying about the terror of those minutes inside the bank and along the pursuit route. Deputy Bolaski, who had undergone multiple surgeries to repair the gunshot wounds in his arm, took the stand and described the moment the first rounds came through his windshield. The Norco shootout sent a shockwave through law enforcement agencies nationwide. At the time, most patrol officers carried only a 6-shot revolver and had access to a shotgun locked in the trunk of their cruiser. The Norco robbers had outgunned every officer on the scene with semi-automatic rifles capable of penetrating car doors and standard-issue ballistic vests. In the years that followed, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department became one of the first agencies in the country to authorize patrol rifles for deputies, placing AR-15 pattern carbines in squad cars so officers would not face the same lethal disadvantage. Dozens of departments across California and beyond followed suit throughout the 1980s, citing the Norco incident as the catalyst. The lesson was reinforced 17 years later when 2 heavily armed robbers wearing homemade body armor held up a Bank of America branch in North Hollywood, Los Angeles, on February 28, 1997. During that 44-minute gun battle, officers again found themselves outmatched by suspects carrying fully automatic AK-47-style rifles and in 91 Hong Kong dollars.
The North Hollywood shootout resulted in the deaths of both suspects and injuries to 12 officers and 8 civilians.
Police commanders who reviewed the incident drew a direct line back to Norco, noting that the same fundamental mismatch in firepower had repeated itself. The North Hollywood event accelerated a nationwide push to equip patrol vehicles with rifles and to train every officer, not just SWAT specialists, in their use. The 2006 television film Rapid Fire dramatized the Norco shootout for a wider audience, depicting the robbery, the pursuit, and the Lytle Creek standoff through the eyes of the responding deputies. The film brought renewed attention to the case at a time when many of the surviving participants were still dealing with the physical and psychological aftermath. Deputy Bolaski, who had long since retired from the department, spoke publicly about the lasting effects of the injuries he sustained that day, including chronic pain and limited mobility in his shooting arm. Several other officers involved in the pursuit reported symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress in the years following the event.
Peter Houlihan's 2019 nonfiction book Norco 80 provided the most detailed public account of the robbery and its aftermath, drawing on court transcripts, interviews with surviving officers, and previously sealed investigative files.
The book documented how the small-town setting of Norco amplified the shock of the violence, describing a community where many residents knew the bank employees by name and where gunfire of that intensity had never been heard before. Houlihan's research also traced the personal histories of the 5 robbers, revealing how Smith recruited the others from the fringes of the Southern California survivalist subculture during the late 1970s. Today, the Norco shootout is a standard case study at law enforcement training academies across the United States.
The California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training includes the incident in its curriculum on high-risk patrol response, emphasizing the importance of immediate access to rifle-caliber weapons, coordinated multi-agency pursuit tactics, and the psychological preparation required when a routine call escalates without warning.
The intersection of 4th Street and Hamner Avenue in Norco, where Deputy Bolaski first came under fire, is passed daily by residents who may not know what happened there on a Friday afternoon more than 4 decades ago, but the officers who train at the academy remember it in precise detail.
Subscribe to Dark Verdict and turn on notifications so you never miss a case.